optimism and hope for the common denominator of over 80 ethnicity, a country with 3,000 years of glorious history and culture, mother of freedom. Ethiopia.
Welcome to Ethiopia Today. Our today's presentation covers the following topics. Leaders stress the need for stronger and better leadership. Eye-catching Tanzanian dam being constructed by Egyptian engineers. EU wants its own version of the China's Belt and Road in Africa. Additional U.S. troops arrive in Poland. Details are presented as follows.
Leaders stress the need for stronger and better leadership. African growth and development will require strong, visionary leadership that caters for the needs of the people and effectively strengthens institutions that encourage peaceful coexistence while providing disincentives to conflicts and coups. Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed and Nigerian President Muhammadu Buhari said on Sunday in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. At a meeting between both leaders at the headquarters of the African Union, Addis Ababa, Abiy thanked Buhari for support to the country over the years on national and personal endeavors, particularly in encouraging unity and stability. The Prime Minister noted that the African continent had been slow in growth due to conflicts, adding that the larger economies like Ethiopia and Nigeria should provide the leadership that will deepen progress and prosperity on the continent. Abiy said the resurgence of coups on the continent could further weaken institutions and reverse the gains of democracy, appreciating President Buhari for his position on zero tolerance for military interference in governance. The Prime Minister underscored that collective and visionary leadership will move Africa forward. President Buhari, on his part, commended the efforts of the Prime Minister Abiy in maintaining peace and unity in the country and dedication to ensuring fairness and justice in development. You are leading a country that is large and diversified just like Nigeria, and I know the sacrifices required to make desired impact, especially in maintaining peace, added President Buhari urged Abiy to stay focused on keeping the country together in spite of the difficulties, assuring that Nigeria will continue to support efforts in peaceful coexistence and unity. The president said that the prime minister had provided strong leadership for the country, encouraging him to sustain the good work in ensuring even development. A Tanzania dam being constructed by Egyptian engineers is attention-grabbing. Later this year, Egyptian engineering firm Arab Contractors is expected to complete the construction of the Julius Nyerere Dam on the Rufiji River. Once completed, the $3 billion dam could be Africa's fourth biggest by power production, producing up to 5920 gigawatt-hour of power annually, enabling more Tanzanians gain access to electricity. The Egyptian firm has used the dam to be run by the Tanzania electricity supply company TANESCO to market its prowess, depicting it as a symbol of Egyptian engineering capabilities. The facility is erected at 440 feet with a reservoir of about 100 kilometers long, enough to hold 34 billion cubic meters. The firm says there will be 2 external outlets to drain excess water of the reservoir should it fill beyond capacity. This, it argues, will prevent any flooding from the dam, ensuring safety throughout operations. But the dam is not just an engineering depiction. The Egyptian government has been pressuring the contractors to complete the dam as scheduled and within the standards approved by Cairo. President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi's office last year indicated the dam will be erected within the framework of distinguished relations between Tanzania and Egypt. Beyond the dam in Tanzania, however, Egypt appears focused on much more. In a dispute with Ethiopia over the construction design and operational safety of the Grand Ethiopia Renaissance Dam, Egyptians have ramped up cooperation deals with Nile Basin countries including Tanzania, Kenya, Uganda, South Sudan, Rwanda, Burundi, and the Democratic Republic of Congo. When the GERD built through local fundraising was set up, Cairo opposed it, arguing downstream countries Sudan and Egypt needed to agree on the safety operations as well as the amount of water it can take in during filling. Egypt rejects the accusation that it is entirely opposed to the project for the sake of it. Cairo says it has unwavering commitment to support its fellow Nile Basin states to pursue economic growth and development, including by harnessing the resources of the Nile River through waterworks and hydropower projects, while ensuring that such projects do not inflict significant harm on Egypt, according to a bulletin shared with news outlets. According to the bulletin, Cairo's worry is that Ethiopia doesn't understand how vulnerable Egypt is, relying on the Nile for most of its water use. Cairo's argument is that it could face a shortage of 123 billion cubic meters of water in 20 years of filling, more if it takes shorter to fill, causing serious losses of livelihoods. Egyptians, though, reject the idea that its foreign policy in the region is determined by the Nile waters alone. Called Abiy Ahmed, the Egyptian ambassador to Kenya, told the East African Cairo is looking for closer ties with the region because they face similar problems. It is critical to note that Egypt's eagerness to shore up its ties with fellow African countries in the region and beyond cannot be attributed to a single issue, he added. This would be a gross oversimplification that overlooks the rich mutually beneficial cooperation that continues to blossom between Egypt and its fellow African countries in all areas, El Abad told the East African. The opportunities for this collaboration are boundless, including in commerce and trade, political and diplomatic cooperation, cultural and educational exchange, plus security cooperation. He argued that Egypt is targeting the benefits of the African Continental Free Trade Area and is committed to ensuring that no one is left behind and that the legitimate development ambitions and aspirations of our beloved continent are realized. Experts, though, say the Nile is so important to Egypt that it must work hard to ensure the basin is a friendly zone. River Nile is their lifeline, and Egypt must find ways of working together with these countries so they do not take positions that will affect the flow of the water, said Dr. Mustafa Ali, chairman of the Horn Institute for Strategic Studies, a think tank in Nairobi. Dr. Ali told the East African that Egypt may not find ground sticking to Nile water sharing agreements reached during the colonial period, but could use economic leverage to make it less attractive for the riparian countries to make drastic changes in policies over the Nile. It is inevitable that they have to renegotiate. They need to find ways of building interconnected economies of these countries and look after the security of the region. That will pave the way for renegotiation, he said in an interview. Let's say something here. The Blue Nile or Abiy River is equally important to Ethiopia as it is for Egyptians. Ethiopia has repeatedly said that the GERD is being constructed in line with the laws of transboundary waters and also envisaged to enhance the regional integration. It is taking too much for Egypt to understand Ethiopia's intention of good faith. Egypt is saying that Ethiopia doesn't understand how much it depends on the Nile River. But Ethiopia is also saying that Egypt doesn't understand its ethical intention not to harm any nations. According to the beliefs of Ethiopians, Egypt's worry is not the claimed shortage of water but the fear of its colonial-era monopoly right to be shared due to the construction of GERD. Ethiopia is the source of Blue Nile River, which contributes over 85% of the overall Nile River. Unfortunately, Ethiopia hasn't managed to utilize this natural resource, partly due to the treaties made during colonial rule. Let's get back to the experts' analysis. Egypt's President El-Sisi has met, or at least telephoned, all leaders of the riparian countries, emphasizing cooperation. Last year in May, he became the first Egyptian leader to visit Djibouti. Both countries have cooperated to ensure security of the Bab al-Mandeb Strait, one of the busiest shipping lanes. But Djibouti is also host to the Regional Bloc Intergovernmental Authority on Development (IGAD), which comprises 6 basin countries. In Djibouti, Sisi stressed his country is opposed to any attempt to impose a different reality on the ground through unilateral decisions that do not consider the interests and rights of the river's 2 downstream countries. Befriending riparian countries has the advantage of them readily supporting Egypt should the matter escalate, Dr. Hatem Sadek, an academic, argued, but cautioned there was no likelihood of war yet over the Nile. But Egypt has recently signed military cooperation agreements with South Sudan and Uganda, adding to existing arrangements with Kenya, Tanzania, and Sudan. Undoubtedly, coordination with South Sudan and Uganda is closely related to the GERD file. From the beginning, political leaders dealt with the dam file as a national security issue and decided its position more than once, considering that prejudice to any water drop from Egypt's historical share is a red line that should not be approached. One thing Egypt must understand and accept is that Ethiopia has the right to develop and utilize its own river fairly without causing any significant harm to other nations. Egypt wants Ethiopia to submit its waterworks and hydropower development plans or projects, including GERD, to get permitted from Egypt in a similar fashion as its old rights. Furthermore, Ethiopians see Egypt the major sponsor of the divisive TPLF, which has caused huge harm to the nation internally. And externally, the Sudanese military government is engaged in accomplishing Egypt's mission, not its own people's mission. Egypt is playing an adverse role in regional stability. Egypt's intention to rally other Nile Basin countries behind to try to gain support against GERD lacks ethical ground. Ethiopia is not against any support the neighboring or the riparian countries get from Egypt or against any bilateral agreements between them. But Egypt is upset due to the fact that its unfair inherent monopoly right taken away and being shared fairly. That's unfair frustration. Ethiopia, as a fair nation, never treats any nation unfairly and demands similar treatment from others. Fairness and regional integration are the core elements embedded in GERD. Majority of Ethiopians do not have access to electricity, which is unfair and needs addressing, and GERD is contributing to that. Regionally, there is electricity shortage, and completion of GERD project is also intended to bridge part of these gaps. Ethiopia is doing nothing unfair. Ethiopia's intention is cooperation and growing together as a region based on its famous principle of Metamer, meaning integration without leaving anyone behind, including Egypt. We repeat this. The Ethiopian Metamer principle encompasses the pharaohs too, so nothing to worry about the GERD or any upcoming waterworks and hydropower projects of Ethiopia. EU wants its own version of the China's Belt and Road in Africa. EU plans for upcoming Africa summit in Brussels include launch of ambitious package after Global Gateway pledge to mobilize up to €300 billion. Divisions within the bloc on how much and what to fund risk reducing it all to a simple rebranding of existing project allocations, observers warn, according to the South China Morning Post. With less than 2 weeks to go until the 6th EU-African Union Summit, European Union members remain split on how to come up with a financial package able to rival China's multi-billion-dollar Belt and Road Initiative. EU plans for the February 17-18 summit in Brussels include the launch of an ambitious Africa-Europe investment package taking into account global challenges such as climate change and the current health crisis. In December, the 27-member bloc announced it would mobilize up to €300 or US $343.5 billion in public and private investments around the world by 2027. Working out to €60 billion a year, the funds would be used to help emerging economies heal from the coronavirus pandemic, which has pushed many African countries into debt distress. Dubbed the Global Gateway, the plan is a response to China's growing economic and political clout in Africa via its transcontinental belt and road infrastructure and investment strategy, with European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen pitching it as a true alternative. The European Union, with the backing of French President Emmanuel Macron, holder of the EU's 6-month rotating presidency until June, had proposed an initial annual investment package worth €20 billion for African infrastructure. However, observers say that agreeing on member states' financial commitments and deciding on the projects that will receive the funding has become problematic. There is quite some debate and a wide divergence of interests among EU members behind the scenes, according to Dr. Tim Zajantz, political science lecturer at the University of Freiburg in Germany. He said Spain wanted to see more projects in North Africa. The Germans doubted that all the projects were carefully thought through, while Hungary, Finland, and Portugal pointed out that they first had to budget for the additional development projects. But commitments should be expected at the Brussels edition of the triennial EU-African Union Summit hosted the last time by the Ivory Coast in 2017. The event had to be postponed in 2020 over coronavirus disruptions such as flight suspensions and border shutdowns. Despite obvious internal squabbles over the EU's strategic reorientation towards Africa, the EU will propose a bundle of projects at the summit to add credibility to its claim that Europe offers a viable alternative to China's Belt and Road Initiative, Zajantz noted. For nearly a decade, China has funded and built mega projects including ports, highways, power plants, and railways in Africa, Asia, and parts of Europe under its Belt and Road Plan. However, such investments, especially in Africa, have drawn criticism from the US and other Western nations that claim China's lending practices were luring poor states into debt traps. As criticism grows over African debt, Chinese lenders have become more cautious, especially over mega infrastructure projects. Last week, Nigerian Transport Minister Rotimi Amici said Chinese loans had been delayed and the country was now looking to Europe for funding to complete infrastructure, especially its railways. Aside from the size of the financing package, the terms of funding will also affect how likely African countries are likely to take it up. The EU's renewed interest in Africa also comes amid growing criticism of how it handled the coronavirus pandemic by closing its borders without consultation, especially after South African scientists discovered the Omicron coronavirus variant late last year. African countries at the summit may push for deals to manufacture vaccines locally and also seek concessional loans to fund projects. However, it remains to be seen whether the EU presents a financing package approaching China's massive outlays on infrastructure in Africa, according to W. Jude Moore, senior policy fellow with the Washington-based think tank Center for Global Development and a former public works minister in Liberia. One can be cautiously optimistic, Moore said, but pointed out that The Economist recently described the EU's Global Gateway as largely a mixture of existing commitments, loan guarantees, and heroic assumptions about the ability of the club to crowd in private investment rather than actual new spending. If this is indicative of what is to come, it is not promising, Moore said. At the 2021 Forum on China-Africa Cooperation in late November, Chinese President Xi Jinping promised US $40 billion of investments into Africa, including exports and credit line support. According to the Center for Global Development, with the African Union EU summit having stalled repeatedly, African leaders have strengthened ties with other global powers, including China. The December Forum on China-Africa Cooperation (FOCAC) not only demonstrated the impressive depth and breadth of China's relationships with Africa, but crucially signaled a new approach based on soft assets, very much stepping on the EU's toes. Their €300 billion worldwide connectivity strategy, Moore co-wrote in an analysis for the think tank. Moritz Weigel, founding director of the Germany-based firm China Africa Advisory, said that so far the unveiling of financing packages under the Global Gateway had been limited to relabeling of existing commitments or lofty announcements on mobilizing investment. It will be interesting to see whether the EU-Africa summit results in any more concrete pledges for new and additional finance, or if existing allocations for bilateral cooperation and potential EIB co-financing simply get an EU-Africa branding, Weigel said. The EU is not alone in wanting to counter China's Belt and Road Plan. The G7 nations led by the US last year unveiled their Build Back Better World B3W initiative, framed it as a values-driven, high-standard and transparent infrastructure partnership led by major democracies. A brainchild of U.S. President Joe Biden, the B3W plan aims to invest US $40 trillion by 2035 in developing nations, including in Africa, where China is the largest financier and infrastructure contractor. More at the Center for Global Development said funds from European lenders would be extended on commercial terms, which is why the Nigerians initially sought Chinese loans, since China's export-import bank rates are cheaper than commercial rates. Borrowing from other sovereigns allows for wiggle room that is not available from commercial borrowers. It is also unclear if Nigeria will be deemed creditworthy or safe by commercial lenders for the size of the loan required for these projects, Moore said. Finally, additional U.S. troops arrived in Poland. A plane carrying U.S. soldiers landed in southern Poland on Sunday. U.S. President Joe Biden's ordered to deploy additional U.S. troops to Poland, Romania, and Germany this week amid rising tensions between Russia and Ukraine. The 1,700 U.S. soldiers sent to Poland will operate in the country's eastern-southern part, according to the Polish Defense Ministry. Logistics, equipment, and a handful of soldiers arrived on other planes on Friday and Saturday. Tensions between Russia and Ukraine are growing as the Western countries are stepping up military maneuvers near the Russian borders. Kyiv and its Western allies have accused Russia of amassing troops near the Ukrainian border, further pointing to the possibility of an invasion. Moscow has denied such claims, adding that it had every right to mobilize troops within its borders and defend its national security.
Thanks for staying with us. If you enjoyed our presentation, give us a like and share to your social contacts. And also don't forget to subscribe and tap on the notification bell if this is your first time. Please also check on our collection of favorites on the description section below. See you on our next video. Many thanks. May God bless Ethiopia and its people.
Optimism and hope for the common denominator of over 80 ethnicity, a country with 3,000 years of glorious history and culture, mother of freedom. Ethiopia